Welcome back to Theresa.is.Dead. My name is Theresa and I'm very much alive. I have an awful, garbage, filthy mouth. Viewer discretion advised. So if you're not into that or weird shit in general, this is definitely not the place for you. Feel free to X out the video here. No harm, no foul, but I'll remember our time fondly. Hello, my little retro weirdos. I know, listen, we have a new intro. People don't like change, I get it, but hear me out. Mommy and daddy are not getting a divorce. You're not having 2 Christmases, Jill, okay? I just wanted to refresh, I want to do something new. So I hope you join me on this journey as I try to figure out what my next intro is going to be. Anywhoosies, in today's video we have a good old-fashioned makeup review. This palette was released earlier this month, but you know, Hurricane Ida came, people were in kayaks. So mail started to finally resume back to normal here, and finally this palette showed up. So without further ado, let's talk about the new Natasha Denona Retro palette, and let's see if I wasted my money or not. Natasha Denona Retro palette retails for $65. A midi-sized must-have eyeshadow palette featuring 15 romantic burgundy and mauve shades, combined with gray browns, taupes, dusty roses, and vintage pinks. Perfect to create romantic, retro-inspired look. This palette is consistent packaging-wise to other midi palettes from this brand. You do get a lovely full-size mirror, and this incredible yet basically boring color story. The obvious elephant in the room, this does not look like this palette, which is the mini retro palette. And that said, I heard that Natasha Denona is not quite done with the retro line. So if you've been waiting for those greens like I have been, rest assured apparently it's on its way. That said, of course, I wish this palette was more in line with the mini retro. Yeah, obviously, because I'm a slut for greens. But you know what though? I'm not that mad about it. There's something so beautifully fucking basic about this palette that I'm okay with it. The inner Anne inside me was foaming at the mouth for this palette, and I let her indulge. Listen, her birthday is coming up next month, and she's been eyeing a goddamn tandem bike, all right? I know, trust me, the older I get, the weirder I become. I know, she's taken over. But anyway, in this palette, you do get a variety of finishes. So let's break it down by finish. And we're gonna start with the Duochrome shade, which is the shade up here, and that's Glitz. The shade Glitz is very pretty. It's described as a cool baby pink with a champagne shift. This shade was fantastic. I didn't experience any issues with it. With a dry brush, it is a little bit on the lighter side, so I prefer to use the shade Saturated or a good old fingering. It applied beautifully with glitter glue, and I didn't experience any crumbliness or bukkake of any kind. It was perfect. Now the next finish I want to talk about is Psychedelic, and this is described as a warm baby pink with multicolor sparks topper. I wanted to like this shade so much more. I think with a small detailed brush in the inner corner, bitch, I'm in love. You can see the shift. I feel like Katy Perry. Bitch, I am a firework. I was listening to music yesterday, and this is the only reason why I'm bringing it up. And yes, I know I'm 10 years too late, but I was listening to Katy Perry's Firework. Listen, I live in the past, it's fine, okay? But I was watching the music video and I didn't realize that like she just shoots fireworks out of her titties. It's a great party trick, I suppose. And a part of me wants to do that. But regardless, I can achieve that just in the inner corner with the shadow. So it's kind of the same thing. Maybe not kinda. It's kinda there, kinda. Anyway, regardless, this is just a mere topper. And honestly, even as a topper, it's just okay. I wanted it to be more saturated. It's the kind of shade that you have to keep layering and layering, and even when you're done, it starts to fade. So you layer a little bit more, and it's like a constant struggle. It's weird. Also, the explosion of glitter bukkake was borderline offensive. I debated starting an OnlyFans because of it. Anyway, on top of existing shadows, I don't really think it does anything for me, except add a pre-cum amount of sparkles on my eyelid, because the rest of it is all over my fucking face. But the inner corner, oh, I'm ruling the world. So just use it in the inner corner, nothing else. So let's move on to the 4 matte shades in this palette. We're gonna start with the shade Mod. This is an off-white with a pink undertone. I love this shade. It's so beautifully pigmented, and I love that it has a slight pink undertone to it. I love when I find white shades that appear on me. My skin tone resembles a plastic bag of teeth and hair, and I usually mark a palette's quality, if it's good or not, by their white shade. I know I shouldn't, but that's usually like the benchmark for pigmentation. If it shows up on me, bitch, we're all set. This is not only a great inner corner shade, but this is a great lid shade as well. And most importantly, if you want to blend anything out to have like more of a lighter gradient, this is a great shade to do that with. Since I look like paper, this color story, it's very easy for me to do too much and look like I got the shit kicked out of me. So this Mod shade helps combat that. Now the next shade is Groove. And this is a dark, warm maroon shade. This is a great liner shade and a great outer corner shade. It's super pigmented and has great longevity. Then we have Nude Mauve, which is a matte medium light neutral shade. This is one of the shades that I use as a transition shade. It works really well in the crease. I did have to build it up a touch, but overall super easy to use. The last matte shade is Amara, which is described as a medium cool vintage rosewood. This shade is also nice, super pigmented, great longevity. I don't have any complaints about it. I lay down in the crease just to give my look a little bit more dimension. Great shade. Now, majority of this palette is the cream powder formula. And listen, normally I think this formula is bullshit. It's always so hard to work on my eyelids, and I usually don't buy palettes with this type of formula in it, especially if it's the majority. That said, pleasantly surprised. I know. These are good. The first one is Andy, and this is a taupe lilac. I'm obsessed. This is one of my go-to crease shades in this palette. It applies so easily and beautifully to the lid, and it just has that perfect amount of coolness to it without making you look dead. Love it. The next shade is Vivian, and this is a pink nude shade. This is one that's a little bit on the lighter side, so I primarily use this shade as another shade to lighten the edges of a look when it looks like it's just kind of going a little bit off the rails. But in the crease, it's a little too light. It's not my favorite. The next shade is Opart, and this is a dark taupe. This is one of the shades that I would use in the outer corner just to add a little dimension to the look. What is nice about this shade is that it blends beautifully with other shades and it doesn't overtake the look. I don't experience any muddiness or patchiness. Everything looks like a beautiful gradient. I love it. Sometimes I find when I do add like the darkest shade in the palette, it really does like overtake everything and it kind of like fucks it up a little bit. This one just melts beautifully. I love it. Then we have Rebellion, which is a medium burgundy shade. Unlike Opart, this doesn't last as well as I would like it to. I use this shade a lot in the outer corner and the lash line. And in the lash line, it's fine. However, in the outer corner, when you pack it on, it kind of starts to fade almost immediately. But when I pair it with Opart, it's fine. And I think it's because Opart is just a better shade overall. That sucks because I love a good burgundy in the outer corner. Kind of makes you look like a vampire. I love it. It just sucks that it doesn't last. The other issue I had with the shade is that when you use it all over the lid, it does like lay down beautifully, but again, it starts to fade. So you have to use a lot of product to make it super opaque, but then you give it an hour or two and it starts to fade. So I figured, you know what? Okay, this shade is a little bit weak. Let me just put something on top of it. So I actually put the shade Psychedelic on top of it, the topper shade. Ugh, it just looks sad. The combination of those two shades just, no thank you. I looked all kinds of fucked up. I wanted to love those two shades so much, but no thank you. The last cream powder is Go-Go, and this is a medium warm rose. This is another great shade. Loved it. I love using it in the crease because it would add dimension to the look. Super beautiful. Okay, last but not least, we have the metallics. And there are 4 metallics in this palette, but before I break it down by shade, I will say that I applied them all the same exact way with glitter glue and a saturated brush, and they all operated very much the same. There were no differences between the shades. They're pigmented, I experienced little to no fallout, and they all had great longevity. That said, starting with Jude, this is a warm taupe shade. I love this one, and honestly, it's probably my favorite metallic in the whole palette. I love a basic ass bitch taupe shade on my eyes. It's so flattering. I love it. The next shade is Patty, and this is a nude rose copper. This one's pretty. I like it, but she's boring. She's pretty, but she's boring. Then we have Swing, which this is actually my second favorite in the palette. And this is a dark, cool maroon. It's so beautiful. I truly love cool tone purples, and this one just doesn't disappoint. It's so good. And then last but not least, we have Helio, which is another nice shade. It's taupe, but it has a little bit of a pink undertone on me. Super pretty, but I like Jude more, but still very nice. For $65, this was a lovely palette. Yes, there were some things I wish I could change, but overall, I'm not mad at it. This was a lot of fun to play with. And the fact that I didn't experience any irritation is a huge plus. If you're new here, I have super sensitive eyes. And Natasha Denona is just, you know, a love-hate brand for me. I want to love them, but they keep hating my ass. And usually the pinks and the reds and the purples just, they fuck me up. So the fact that I didn't experience that issue is a huge plus in my book. One palette that I have in my collection is the Love palette. And I really do like that palette. And yes, while it's not perfect, I thought it was really good. And again, another palette that didn't hurt my eyes. But of course, if I had to pick pick between the two palettes because, you know, when you do look at them side by side, you know, you can see a little, you know, slight similarities to it. My preference would lie with the Retro palette. Besides some of the formula inconsistencies, there are two negatives with this palette. One, if you're not careful, you can look like you have an infected eye, like somebody just shit on your pillowcase, okay? There's a very fine line when combining these colors. If you do too much, people will ask you if you're okay. You have allergies? I know it's terrible. And you don't want people talking to you. Like nobody does. So avoid it. Wear sunglasses if you go a little too ham on your face. The other thing I would say that could be a negative is the amount of looks you can create when using this palette. Some of the shades, yeah, there's a fair amount of overlap and some could have been omitted. Some of the colors do look a little too similar on the eye. So if you're looking for variety, I don't know how much you can achieve that with this palette. Like I could think of like 3, maybe 4 like really solid looks, and then beyond that it's like everything kind of looks the same. But of course I could be the minority in that when looking at this palette. I'm sure you can find a lot of inspiration on YouTube. But when I look at the palette, I'm like, all right, yeah, like 3, okay. All right, I could do like a burgundy, like a purple tone, and like a taupe tone. Like, all right, that's it. In any case, it really comes down to the color story. If this speaks to your basic ass, buy it. But if you can hold off and wait for a sale, do that. You'll thank me later. This is a nice palette, but it's better at a discount. Now I want to hear from y'all. Let me know down below if you did pick up this palette, if you love it, if you hate it, if you wanted something more. Tell me your gripes down below about the mini retro saga and whatever, blah, 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 whatever. Let me know because I love hearing from you. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it as always. Feel free to like, comment, hit that subscribe button. It's free, and hit that bell icon for notification of all my future posts. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon. To all my beautiful, wonderful patron bubbies, thank you so much for keeping this delicious, disgusting, deliciously basic garbage boat afloat. I couldn't do it without you. I love your adorable faces. Can't wait to gobble you all up, and we can be one. And it'll be a great time. I love you. If you want to know what is currently on my face and bloopity blop blop, everything will be listed in the description box below. I'll see you little weirdos later. Bye.